Lily's hands were bleeding again. The sharp edges of the metal scraps always found new ways to cut through her worn gloves. She wiped the blood on her pants and kept digging through the pile of debris. Somewhere in this mess of twisted steel and broken circuits, there had to be something worth selling. The junkyard stretched for miles across the dusty plains of Harvest Prime, filled with the remains of failed dreams and broken machines. She was 14 years old and completely alone in the universe. Her parents had died 3 years ago when the terraforming towers collapsed. The company that owned the colony sent their condolences and a small payment that ran out within 6 months. After that, Lily learned to survive on her own. She lived in an old cargo container on the edge of the settlement, ate protein paste that tasted like cardboard, and spent her days searching through garbage for anything valuable. The sun was setting when she heard the sound. It was faint at first, like a whimper or a cry. Lily stopped moving and listened carefully. There it was again, coming from deeper in the junkyard where the really dangerous stuff was dumped, the area where crashed shuttles and damaged equipment lay in heaps, unstable and ready to collapse at any moment. She should have walked away. Smart people avoided that section, but the sound came again, weaker this time, and Lily found her feet moving toward it before her brain could argue. She climbed over a pile of broken solar panels and squeezed between 2 crushed rovers. The sound grew louder, more desperate. Behind a fallen section of hull plating, she found them. 2 small creatures trapped beneath a piece of twisted metal that had them pinned against the ground. They were unlike anything Lily had ever seen. Their bodies were covered in scales that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, shifting colors from deep blue to purple. They had 4 legs, long tails, and faces that looked almost intelligent. One of them tried to lift its head when it saw her, but it was too weak. Both creatures were thin, their ribs visible beneath their scales. Lily knew she should report this to the colony administration. Unknown alien life was supposed to be documented and studied. But she also knew what would happen. They would take the creatures away, lock them in cages, run tests. These things were dying, and bureaucracy moved slowly. She made a decision that would change everything, though she did not know it then. Lily grabbed the metal beam and pulled with all her strength. It did not move. She adjusted her grip and tried again, her muscles screaming in protest. The beam shifted slightly. The creatures watched her with eyes that seemed far too aware. She pulled one more time, putting her entire body weight into it, and the beam finally rolled away. The creatures did not run. They could barely move. Up close, Lily could see cuts on their legs and sides. They had been trapped for days at least, maybe longer. Without thinking about her own limited supplies, she reached into her bag and pulled out her water bottle. She poured some into her cupped hand and held it out to the nearest creature. It hesitated, then leaned forward and drank. The second one dragged itself closer and did the same. They were so thirsty that they drained her entire bottle. Lily sat back and looked at them. They were too injured to survive out here alone, and too weak to go wherever they had come from. She looked around at the empty junkyard, at the darkening sky, and made another choice that defied common sense. She took off her jacket and wrapped it around the smaller of the 2 creatures, then lifted it carefully. It was heavier than it looked, but she managed. The other one struggled to its feet and limped along beside her as she made her way back through the junkyard. Anyone watching would have thought she was crazy. She probably was. But Lily had been alone for so long that the thought of leaving these creatures to die felt impossible. Her cargo container home was small and cramped. She laid the injured creature on her sleeping mat and helped the other one inside. They looked around at her tiny space with those intelligent eyes. Lily opened her storage locker and stared at her food supplies. She had enough protein paste and dried rations to last maybe 2 weeks if she was careful. These creatures looked like they had not eaten in days. She opened a packet of protein paste and squeezed it onto a metal plate. The creatures sniffed it cautiously, then began to eat. They were so hungry that they finished the entire packet in seconds. Lily opened another one and split it between them. Then another. She watched as they ate nearly a week's worth of her food in one sitting. When they finally stopped, their bellies were full and their eyes were brighter. That night, Lily lay on the floor while the creatures slept on her mat. She was hungry, and her back hurt from the hard surface, but she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt needed. These creatures depended on her, trusted her. She decided to call them Spark and Flare because of the way their scales glowed. Over the next 3 days, she gave them most of her food and all of her water. She cleaned their wounds with her first aid supplies and talked to them while she worked. They seemed to understand her voice even if they could not respond. On the third night, one of them pressed its head against her hand and Lily felt something strange. It was like warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling of gratitude and connection that had no words. By the fourth morning, they were strong enough to stand and move around. Lily knew they had to leave. She opened the container door and pointed toward the mountains in the distance. The creatures looked at her for a long moment, then walked outside. They turned back once, their glowing eyes fixed on her face before disappearing into the wasteland. Lily returned to her empty container. Her food supplies were almost gone. She would have to work extra shifts at the junkyard to earn enough credits for more rations. But as she lay down that night, she did not regret her choice. She had done the right thing, even though it cost her dearly. She did not know that thousands of miles away, the creatures she had saved were being found by their own people. She did not know that her act of kindness had been witnessed and remembered. She did not know that in 3 months everything would change. 3 months passed like sand slipping through fingers. Lily barely thought about Spark and Flare anymore. Survival demanded all her attention, leaving no room for memories of glowing scales and intelligent eyes. Harvest Prime was dying, and everyone knew it. The announcement came on a cold morning in late autumn. Administrator Brennan gathered everyone in the central square, his face showing no emotion as he read from his datapad. The parent company had declared the colony financially unviable. Evacuation ships would arrive in 6 months. Only contracted workers and their immediate families would be given free passage. Everyone else needed to find their own way off the planet or stay behind. Lily stood at the back of the crowd and did the math in her head. A ticket on a commercial transport cost 15,000 credits. She had saved 230. Even working every day until the evacuation deadline, she would never earn enough. Around her, other orphans were coming to the same conclusion. They were being left behind because they had no value to the company balance sheets. That afternoon, Lily went back to the junkyard and worked until her hands cramped. She found a functioning power cell that might be worth 50 credits and a damaged computer core that could fetch 20 if she was lucky. It was not nearly enough, but she kept searching. What else could she do? Old Mrs. Kova found her there after sunset. The elderly woman had been a teacher before the colony started falling apart. Now she lived on a small pension and looked after some of the younger orphans who had nowhere else to go. "You should not be out here alone after dark," Mrs. Kova said gently. "Garrett and his people have been causing trouble." Lily had heard about Garrett. He was a former security contractor who had lost his job when the company started cutting costs. Now he led a gang of desperate men who took what they wanted from anyone too weak to fight back. They mostly targeted orphans and elderly residents because nobody would protect them. "I need to keep working," Lily said, not looking up from the pile of scrap she was sorting. "Every credit counts." Mrs. Kova sighed and sat down on a broken crate. "You gave away the heating unit you found last week to the Peterson family. Daniel told me you fixed his prosthetic leg without charging him anything. You keep helping others when you should be helping yourself." "They needed it more than I did," Lily said simply. "That is a kind heart talking," Mrs. Kova replied. "But kindness does not buy transport tickets." Lily knew she was right, but she could not change who she was. When she saw someone suffering and she had the power to help, she helped. It was that simple, even if it made her own situation worse. 2 weeks later, Garrett found her. She was walking back from the junkyard with a bag of salvaged parts when 3 men blocked her path. Garrett was in the middle, tall and broad with a scar across his cheek. "What have you got there, little orphan?" he asked, reaching for her bag. Lily tried to step around him, but one of his men grabbed her arm. She dropped the bag and twisted free, but Garrett picked it up and looked inside. "Not much," he said, disappointed, "but better than nothing." "Please," Lily said, hating how her voice shook. "I need those parts. I need the credits," Garrett laughed. "So do we. You should learn how things work around here now. The strong take what they want." He turned to walk away, but then a voice called out from behind Lily. "Leave her alone." It was Daniel, the boy whose prosthetic she had repaired. He stood there with 2 other orphans, all of them holding pipes and tools as weapons. They were scared, Lily could see it, but they stood firm anyway. Garrett looked at them and sneered. "You kids think you can stop us?" "Maybe not," Daniel said. "But there are witnesses now. You want the security patrol asking questions?" For a moment, Lily thought Garrett would attack anyway. His hand moved toward the knife on his belt. Then he dropped her bag on the ground and spat at her feet. "This is not over, little orphan," he said. "You and your friends better watch yourselves." After they left, Lily picked up her bag with shaking hands. Daniel and the others gathered around her. "Thanks," she managed to say. "You helped me when I needed it," Daniel replied. "We look after each other, right?" Lily nodded, but she knew Garrett would come back. Men like him did not forget. She had made an enemy, and she was running out of time to escape this planet. That night, she lay in her cargo container and stared at the ceiling. Through the small window, she could see stars scattered across the black sky. Somewhere out there was Earth, the homeworld she had never seen. Somewhere out there were colonies that thrived instead of died. But none of those places wanted orphans with no money and no skills except digging through trash. Strange lights appeared at the edge of the solar system that week, but Lily did not hear about them. The colony's sensors were old and barely maintained. Administrator Brennan dismissed the readings as equipment errors. He had more important things to worry about, like preparing the evacuation for people who actually mattered. Lily kept working, kept surviving, kept helping others even when it hurt her chances. She gave her spare blanket to a family with a sick child. She shared her rations with the younger orphans who were too small to earn their own. She did not know why she did it. Maybe it was how her parents had raised her. Maybe it was just who she was. She had forgotten about Spark and Flare completely now. The memory of those 3 days felt like a dream from another lifetime. She did not know that her kindness had traveled across star systems. She did not know that in the halls of power on a distant world, important beings were discussing her name. She did not know that the lights at the edge of the solar system were not equipment errors. She did not know that everything was about to change forever. The fleet was coming, and they remembered what she had done. Dawn arrived with shadows. Lily woke to darkness when the sun should have been rising. She stumbled outside her container, confused and still half asleep, and looked up at the sky. Wings. Hundreds of them, blocking out the morning light. Creatures so large they seemed impossible flew in patterns above the settlement. Their scales caught the sunlight that filtered through gaps in their formation, creating flashes of gold and red and deep purple across the darkened ground. Lily stood frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. Around her, the colony erupted into chaos. People ran screaming into their homes. Alarms started blaring from the security center. Someone fired a weapon into the air, the shot disappearing harmlessly into the distance. Over the public address system, Administrator Brennan's panicked voice ordered everyone to take shelter immediately. But Lily could not move. Something about these creatures felt familiar, the way they flew, the shimmer of their scales. Then the largest one descended into the central plaza, and Lily's breath caught in her throat. It looked like Spark and Flare, but impossibly huge. Its scales were the color of ancient gold, and when it landed, the ground shook beneath its weight. Security personnel surrounded the creature with weapons raised. Administrator Brennan arrived moments later, his face pale but trying to maintain authority. The creature regarded them with eyes that held more intelligence than any animal should possess. Then it did something that made everyone step back in shock. A device on its chest projected images into the air. Holographic symbols formed words in multiple languages until they found English. "We seek the small human who saved our young." More images appeared, and Lily felt her legs go weak. There she was, pulling metal debris off 2 small creatures, feeding them from her own supplies, caring for their wounds. The hologram showed everything from angles she had not known existed. Someone had been watching, recording. Brennan recovered quickly. His eyes narrowed as he calculated possibilities. "We can discuss this matter," he announced loudly. "I am the administrator of this colony, and I speak for all humans here." The giant creature's eyes moved past him, scanning the crowd that had gathered despite the danger. Lily tried to shrink back into the shadows, but those ancient eyes found her. They locked onto her face, and she felt that same warmth she had experienced 3 months ago. Recognition. "There," the creature's translation device announced. "Bring the small one forward." Security guards grabbed Lily before she could run. They were not gentle as they dragged her through the crowd toward the plaza. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. What did these creatures want with her? Had she done something wrong by helping Spark and Flare? Were they angry? The creature lowered its massive head until it was level with Lily's face. She could see every detail of its scales, smell something like smoke and spice on its breath. This close, the creature was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Its eyes studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent. "Do not be afraid, small one," the translation device said, and somehow the mechanical voice carried warmth. "I am called Grandmother Ash. You saved the children of our crown princess when they were lost and dying. You gave them food when you had little for yourself. You tended their wounds and asked for nothing in return." Lily found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "They were hurt. I just helped them." "Yes," Grandmother Ash replied. "You helped beings you had never seen before, knowing they could give you nothing. You fed them when you were hungry. You sheltered them when you had barely enough shelter for yourself. This is what we have come to honor." More of the giant creatures landed in the plaza. One of them, with scales the color of blood-red sunsets, approached carefully. Two younger creatures followed her, and Lily recognized them instantly. Spark and Flare, though they were now the size of horses instead of dogs. They rushed toward her, moving carefully despite their size, and pressed their heads against her sides. That warmth flooded through her again, stronger now. "My children," the red-scaled creature said through her own translation device. "I am Crown Princess Crimson Wing. You saved them from death. Our people searched for weeks, fearing them lost forever. When we found them, they were near starvation. The medics said they would have died within days. They survived because of you," the crowd murmured. Administrator Brennan pushed forward again. "This is wonderful news, of course. Perhaps we can discuss how this fortunate situation might benefit both our peoples. I am sure we can reach arrangements that would be mutually profitable." Grandmother Ash turned her gaze on him, and the administrator actually took a step backward. "You abandoned this child," the old creature said, her voice cutting through the plaza like a blade. "Your records show she is an orphan with no legal guardian. Your evacuation plans leave her behind to die on this failing world. Do not speak to me of mutual benefit when you gave her nothing." Brennan's face reddened, but he said nothing. He could not. Every word was true. "Lily, human child," Grandmother Ash continued, turning back to her. "You are declared a friend of the Draken fleet. This title has been given only 3 times in our 10,000-year history. You may come with us to our homeworld as an honored guest with full citizenship and all rights of our people. Or, if you wish to remain with your kind, we will establish a permanent trade relationship with this colony to ensure its prosperity." Lily's mind reeled. She was being offered escape, a home, a future. Everything she had been desperate for was suddenly within reach. But as she looked around the plaza, she saw the other orphans watching from behind barriers. She saw Mrs. Kova standing with the younger children, hope and fear mixed on her face. She saw Daniel with his repaired prosthetic, and the Peterson family and all the others who had been abandoned just like her. "Can I ask for something different?" Lily said quietly. Grandmother Ash tilted her head. "Speak your desire, small one." "The other orphans," Lily said, her voice growing stronger. "The ones the company is leaving behind. Can they come too? And the people who stayed to help us, like Mrs. Kova. Can you give them the same chance you are giving me?" For a long moment, silence filled the plaza. Then Grandmother Ash began to make a sound, a deep rumbling that built until it echoed off the buildings. The other Draken joined in, and Lily realized they were laughing. Not mockery, but genuine delight. "Now I understand," Grandmother Ash said, "why our young ones trusted you." Grandmother Ash's laughter faded into something that sounded almost like respect. The ancient Draken settled herself more comfortably on the plaza ground, her golden scales catching the sunlight that now filtered through the fleet above. Around them, more Draken landed, creating a circle of massive bodies and folded wings. The humans watched nervously, unsure whether to be terrified or amazed. "Small Lily," Grandmother Ash said, her voice carrying across the silent plaza. "You stand before the most powerful military fleet in 3 star systems. You hold the gratitude of our crown princess. You could ask for wealth beyond measure, technology that would make you powerful among your people, a life of comfort and honor on our homeworld. Instead, you ask for others to share what was meant for you alone." Lily nodded, her throat tight. She knew it might sound foolish, but she could not abandon the others, not when she finally had the power to help them. "We take care of each other," she said simply. "That is what humans do." Crown Princess Crimson Wing moved closer, her red scales shimmering. Spark and Flare stayed pressed against Lily's sides, their warmth surrounding her like a protective shield. "We have been watching your species," the princess said. "For years we have observed human colonies from a distance, trying to understand you. Your kind confuses us. You are young and chaotic. You fight among yourselves. You make illogical decisions. But you also do things we have never seen in all our travels across the stars. She gestured with one clawed hand toward the crowd. That man there with the artificial leg, you repaired it for no payment. That elderly female, you gave her your heating unit when winter came. The family with the sick child, you shared your medicine though you had barely enough for yourself. These actions make no strategic sense. They weaken you while strengthening others who may never repay the debt. They needed help, Lily said, confused. How could I not help them? Exactly, Grandmother Ash rumbled. How could you not? This is the question that brought us here. We Draken have flown between the stars for 10,000 years. We have met 17 intelligent species. Most behave as evolution designed them. They take resources when possible. They help their own family groups. They form alliances based on mutual benefit. This is natural. This is logical. This is how survival works. She paused, her ancient eyes studying Lily carefully. But humans break this pattern. Again and again, we see your kind risk everything for strangers. You run into fires to save people you have never met. You give food to those who cannot repay you. You weep over the deaths of beings from other species. You adopt orphaned animals and care for them as children. You create art that serves no survival purpose. You ask questions about the nature of existence when you should be focused on gathering resources. Crown Princess Crimson Wing continued the thought. When my children crashed on your world, they could have died in 100 different ways. They could have been killed by predators, by the harsh environment, by infection from their wounds. But the greatest danger was starvation. They were trapped, unable to hunt, unable to reach their emergency supplies. Any other species we know would have either ignored them or taken advantage of their weakness. She looked directly at Lily. You found them, and your first instinct was to feed them, not to study them, not to capture them for profit, not to leave them because helping would cost you resources you could not spare. You fed them because they were hungry. You sheltered them because they needed shelter. You gave them your own food even though you were hungry yourself. This is not logical behavior. This is not strategically sound. This is something else entirely. Administrator Brennan tried again to insert himself into the conversation. Yes, very admirable. But let us discuss practical matters. Trade agreements, technology transfers, mining rights. Silence. Grandmother Ash's voice cracked like thunder, and Brennan stumbled backward. You represent everything that makes humans dangerous. Greed, selfishness, the willingness to abandon those who cannot pay. You are what we feared we would find when we came to evaluate your species. She turned back to Lily. But you, small one, and those like you, are what we hoped to find. The capacity for compassion that costs you everything. The instinct to lift others even when you are falling. The stubborn belief that doing the right thing matters more than doing the profitable thing. The old Draken rose to her full height, towering over the assembled humans. The galaxy is ancient and full of dangers. There are species that conquer through force, species that survive through cunning, species that endure through adaptation. But we Draken have been searching for something different. We have been searching for a species that survives through compassion, through the strange belief that helping others makes you stronger, not weaker. Crown Princess Crimson Wing spread her wings, and the other Draken did the same. The display was magnificent and terrifying. We came here with a question, the princess announced. Are humans worthy of our friendship? Can they be trusted as allies? Should we offer them a place in the greater galactic community? She looked at Lily standing small and fragile among the giants. One human answered that question. She showed us that humanity possesses something we value above all else. The courage to be kind when kindness costs everything. The strength to care when caring brings no benefit. The wisdom to know that how you treat the weakest among you defines who you truly are. Grandmother Ash's voice softened. We grant your request, Lily. All orphans of this colony and those who cared for them are welcome among the Draken. We will establish our trade post here, and this colony will prosper. But more than that, we offer humanity itself a greater gift. She paused, and every human in the plaza held their breath. We offer alliance, not of master and servant, but of equals. We will teach you what we know of the galaxy. We will introduce you to other species. We will stand beside you against those who wish you harm. In exchange, we ask only one thing. What? Lily whispered. Stay human, Grandmother Ash replied. Keep that strange compassion that makes no logical sense. Keep rescuing the helpless and feeding the hungry. Keep believing that kindness matters. The galaxy is full of logical species making strategic decisions. It needs something different. It needs humans who will save two lost hatchlings for no reason except that it is the right thing to do. The crowd erupted. Some people cheered, some wept, some still looked fearful and confused. But something fundamental had shifted. The abandoned colony that no one wanted had suddenly become the most important place in human space. All because one girl had shared her food with two creatures she had no reason to help. Administrator Brennan tried to regain control, shouting about proper procedures and chain of command. But nobody was listening to him anymore. The Draen had made their choice, and their choice was Lily. Within hours, Harvest Prime transformed into something nobody recognized. Draen engineers flew between buildings, scanning structures with devices that glowed with soft blue light. The failing power grid that had been dying for months suddenly hummed with new life as alien technology integrated seamlessly with human systems. Water that had tasted like rust for years ran clean and pure. The medical center received equipment that could heal injuries in days instead of months. Lily watched it all from the plaza, still surrounded by Spark and Flare who refused to leave her side. Mrs. Kova stood nearby with tears running down her weathered face. Daniel kept touching his prosthetic leg as if making sure this was real. The other orphans gathered in small groups, whispering excitedly about leaving the planet, about seeing new worlds, about having futures that did not involve slowly starving in the junkyard. Ships began arriving from Earth and the other major colonies. Corporate officials who had written off Harvest Prime as worthless suddenly wanted meetings with the Draen. Military vessels appeared at the edge of the system, not threatening but present. News services broadcast images of the fleet across human space. Everyone wanted to know about the girl who had made first contact with an advanced alien species by accident. But it was the reaction from the wider galaxy that nobody expected. On the third day after the fleet's arrival, another ship entered the system. It was smaller than the Draen vessels but moved with precision and purpose. Grandmother Ash watched it approach and made a sound that might have been satisfaction. The concordat sends observers, she explained to Lily. Word travels fast among the stars. Other species want to see what humanity is. The newcomers called themselves the Venatrix Concordat, a coalition of 7 species that controlled significant territory in nearby systems. Their delegation consisted of 3 beings, each from a different member race. They looked nothing like humans or Draen. One resembled a walking crystal formation. Another had too many arms and eyes that glowed red. The third was difficult to look at directly, its form seeming to shift and blur. They requested a formal meeting in the plaza, and Grandmother Ash granted it. Lily was asked to attend, though she did not understand why. She stood next to the ancient Draen while Crown Princess Crimsonwing translated the alien languages. The crystal being spoke first, its voice like wind chimes. We are Selector Prime of the Concordat. We come to evaluate this alliance between Draen and humanity. The balance of power in this region concerns us. The Concordat fears change, Grandmother Ash replied calmly. You have held your territories for 1,000 years through careful calculation and strategic alliances. The thought of a new species entering the community disrupts your plans. We fear chaos, Selector Prime said. Young species are dangerous. They lack wisdom. They make emotional decisions. They start wars through ignorance. The being with too many arms gestured toward Lily. This alliance rests on the actions of a single juvenile. She fed 2 animals without understanding what they were. Pure chance. Is this how the Draen make decisions now? Based on random acts and sentiment? Lily felt her face grow hot. She knew she should stay quiet, let the important beings talk. But anger bubbled up inside her. These creatures were dismissing what she had done, calling Spark and Flare animals, reducing her choice to meaningless sentiment. They were not just animals, she said, her voice shaking but clear, and it was not random chance. The Concordat delegation turned to look at her properly for the first time. Selector Prime's crystal surface flashed different colors. Explain yourself, human child. Lily took a breath, trying to organize her thoughts. You say I fed them without understanding what they were. That is not true. I did not know they were Draen or that they were important. But I knew they were intelligent. I could see it in their eyes, and I knew they were suffering. She stepped forward, and Spark and Flare moved with her protectively. You call it sentiment like that is a bad thing. But choosing to help them was not about feelings. It was about values. My parents taught me that how you treat someone who cannot help you back shows who you really are. Spark and Flare could not repay me. They could not do anything for me. I helped them because it was right, not because I expected a reward. The blurring creature made a sound like static. But this is precisely the problem. Behavior that ignores benefit, that wastes resources on those who cannot reciprocate. This leads to weakness. How can humans survive in the galaxy if they act against their own interests? Acting against your interests is not the same as acting for others, Lily replied. She was gaining confidence now, the words flowing more easily. Yes, I used food I needed for myself. Yes, I took a risk helping beings I did not know. But humans do not measure everything by immediate benefit. We measure it by what kind of people we want to be. Crown Princess Crimson Wing made a sound of approval. Grandmother Ash remained silent, watching carefully. Lily continued. You think emotions make us weak. Maybe they do sometimes, but they also make us strong in ways you do not understand. A human will run into a burning building to save a stranger's child. We will share our last piece of food with someone who is hungry. We will risk our lives to protect people we have never met, not because it is logical, but because we cannot stand by and watch suffering when we have the power to stop it. She looked directly at Selector Prime. You built your civilization on calculated advantages, on measuring every action by its return. There is nothing wrong with that. It works, but humans are different. We do things that make no strategic sense because we believe some things matter more than strategy. Compassion matters. Justice matters. Kindness matters. Even when they cost us everything. The plaza had gone completely silent. Humans and Draen alike watched this small human girl face down representatives of a powerful alien coalition. She was terrified inside, but she stood straight and spoke the truth as she understood it. You want to know if humanity is dangerous? Lily said. Yes, we are. We are dangerous because we do not think like you. We do not calculate odds and make the safe choice. We do not abandon people just because helping them is difficult. We do not measure worth by what someone can give us in return. She gestured to the orphans watching from the crowd. Those kids would have been left to die on this planet. The company calculated that saving them was not profitable. But they are human beings who deserve a chance at life. So when I had the power to help them, I asked for that. Not because it was logical. Because it was right. Selector Prime's crystal surface swirled with complex patterns. You believe morality supersedes practicality. I believe morality is practical, Lily replied. When you help people who cannot help you back, you create something more valuable than trade agreements. You create trust. You create loyalty. You create a society where people know they matter, even when they are weak or poor or forgotten. Grandmother Ash finally spoke. The child speaks truth that the concordat has forgotten. You have survived for 1,000 years through careful calculation. You have not grown in that time. You have not changed. You have not taken risks or embraced the unknown. You are stable, but you are also stagnant. The ancient Draen spread her wings slightly. Humans are only just reaching the stars. They are young and sometimes foolish. They make mistakes. But they have something the galaxy desperately needs. They have the courage to care about beings who offer them nothing. They have the strength to be kind when kindness is costly. They have the vision to see value beyond profit. Crown Princess Crimson Wing added, We Draen have power and ancient wisdom, but we had grown careful, conservative. We had forgotten what it means to take chances on goodness. This human child reminded us why compassion is not weakness. It is the foundation of everything worth building. 1 year passed like a dream where reality kept getting better instead of worse. Lily still had to remind herself sometimes that it was all real. That she was not going to wake up in her cargo container with an empty stomach and no future. Harvest Prime no longer looked like a dying colony. The Draen trade post stretched across what used to be empty wasteland, a beautiful structure that blended alien architecture with human design. Ships from a dozen different species arrived weekly, bringing goods and knowledge. The settlement had expanded to 3 times its original size. People who had abandoned the colony were begging to return. But the biggest change was the school. It stood at the center of the new district, a building designed specifically for humans and Draen to learn together. Young Draen, still small enough to fit through human doorways, studied mathematics alongside human children. Human teenagers learned Draen history and language while their alien friends tried to understand human poetry and music. Lily split her time between Harvest Prime and the Draen homeworld now. She was 15 years old and served as the official liaison between the two species. It was terrifying and wonderful and exhausting. She had learned the Draen language well enough to hold basic conversations without a translator. She understood their customs, their history, their way of seeing the universe. The Draen homeworld was called Soriketh, which translated roughly as place of ancient flames. It was beautiful beyond anything Lily had imagined. Cities carved into mountains, gardens filled with plants that glowed at night, libraries containing 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge. The Draen treated her with respect that still made her uncomfortable. They called her Hatchling Saver and bowed their heads when she passed. She wore a ceremonial sash now given to her by Grandmother Ash. It was made of material that felt like silk but shimmered with inner light, marked with symbols that identified her as a friend of the Draken fleet. It was the most valuable thing she owned, but she still slept with a small piece of twisted metal from the junkyard under her pillow, a reminder of where she came from. The Alliance had changed humanity's place in the galaxy completely. The Draken introduced humans to the wider galactic community, a complex web of species and civilizations that made human space seem tiny by comparison. Some species were friendly and curious. Others were suspicious and hostile. A few simply did not care about the new arrivals at all. The Venatrix Concordat remained cautious but had opened limited trade with human colonies. Selector Prime sent regular reports on human behavior, still trying to understand how a species could survive through what it called illogical compassion. The reports noted with confusion that humans rescued survivors from crashed ships, even when those survivors were from hostile species. That human medical teams would treat anyone who needed help regardless of their ability to pay. That human colonies regularly sent aid to neighboring settlements even when doing so strained their own resources. The galaxy was learning what it meant when someone was human, and most of the time Lily was proud of what they were learning. But she knew it was not always good news. That afternoon Lily sat in a garden on Soriketh with Spark and Flare. They were fully grown now, magnificent Draken who served in their mother's fleet. But when they were with Lily, they acted like the scared, hungry creatures she had found in the junkyard. They pressed close to her, their scales warm against her sides. "You have been quiet today," Spark observed. His voice had the resonant quality all Draken possessed, but he tried to speak gently for her sake. Lily pulled her knees to her chest. "I heard about the raid on New Manitoba Colony. Pirates attacked 3 days ago, killed 14 people including children." Flare made a low sound of distress. "We sent ships immediately. The pirates were captured." "I know," Lily said. "But it happened because we are here now. Because humans are visible in the galaxy. Those pirates would never have bothered with New Manitoba before. We were not worth their attention. Now we are." "That is not your fault," Spark said firmly. "I know that too," Lily replied. "But knowing it and feeling it are different things. Everything changed because I fed you in that junkyard. I just wanted to help two hurt creatures. I did not think about galactic politics or trade routes or making humanity a target." Grandmother Ash emerged from the garden entrance, moving with surprising quiet for something so large. "Guilt for unintended consequences is a very human emotion," she said, settling herself nearby. "The Draken struggled with this when we first developed faster travel. Every action ripples outward. Every choice creates consequences we cannot predict. How do you deal with it?" Lily asked. "We remember why we made the choice in the first place," the ancient Draken replied. "You helped Spark and Flare because it was right. Because they needed help and you had the power to give it. Everything that came after, good and bad, flows from that moment of compassion. You cannot control all outcomes. You can only control your choices." She tilted her head, studying Lily with those wise eyes. "The galaxy is dangerous. Pirates exist whether humans are visible or not. Hostile species wage wars. Innocent beings suffer. This was true long before you were born and will be true long after you are gone. The question is not how to prevent all harm. The question is what kind of person you will be while harm exists." Crown Princess Crimsonwing landed nearby, her red scales brilliant in the afternoon light. "Problems arise at the Galactic Council," she announced. "The Concordat has raised concerns about human expansion. They argue that your species grows too quickly, takes risks that endanger others." Lily stood up, brushing dust from her clothes. "What do they want?" "Restrictions on colony establishment. Limits on military development. Observers on all human worlds to ensure compliance with galactic laws." The princess paused. They want to control humanity before it becomes too powerful to control. Will the Draken support those restrictions? Lily asked quietly. Grandmother Ash and Crown Princess Crimson Wing exchanged glances. We oppose them, Grandmother Ash said. But our voice is only one among many. The Council will debate for months. Some species support the concordat. Others see humanity as a useful counter to concordat dominance. Still others simply fear the unknown. Lily looked out over the garden at the alien plants and the distant mountains of a world that was not her own, but had welcomed her anyway. In the past year she had learned so much. About different species, different philosophies, different ways of understanding the universe. But she had also learned something else. Humans will not accept those restrictions, she said firmly. We will not let others decide our future. We make mistakes, yes. We are young and sometimes reckless, but we have the right to make our own choices. Even if those choices lead to conflict? Crown Princess Crimson Wing asked. Lily met her gaze steadily. Especially then. You honored us because we choose compassion over calculation, because we help others even when it costs us. But that same instinct makes us defend our freedom fiercely. We do not bow to power just because it is ancient. We do not accept chains just because they are offered politely. Spark rumbled in agreement. This is what makes humans dangerous and valuable. They will not be controlled. The concordat will not like this, Flare added. No, Grandmother Ash said, standing slowly. They will not. But perhaps that is what the galaxy needs. A species that refuses to fit into the careful calculations. That insists on compassion and freedom both. That will fight for what it believes is right, even against overwhelming odds. She looked at Lily with something that might have been pride. You saved 2 hatchlings in a junkyard because it was right. You stood before the concordat and spoke truth because it was right. Now you tell us humans will resist control because it is right. This consistency, this stubborn morality, is why we chose your species. But it is also why some will fear and hate you, Crown Princess Crimson Wing warned. The path forward will not be easy. Lily thought about Harvest Prime, about the orphans who now studied in the new school, about Mrs. Kova who finally had enough to eat, about Daniel and all the others who had been given futures they never thought possible. She thought about humans across space, meeting aliens and forming friendships and learning that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had dreamed. Nothing worth doing is easy, she said simply. My parents taught me that. The Draken have shown me that. And if being human means standing up for what is right even when it is hard, even when it is dangerous, then that is what we will do. As the sun set over Soraketh, painting the sky in colors that had no names in human languages, Lily understood something important. She had not changed everything by feeding 2 hungry creatures in a junkyard. She had simply shown the galaxy what humans were. The changes, the consequences, the future, all of that was still being written. But it would be written by humans who remembered their compassion, who held on to their kindness, who refused to become something lesser just because it was safer. The galaxy would have to accept humanity as it was or face humanity as it could become. Either way, there was no going back. The fleet had returned for her, and in doing so they had changed 2 species forever.